So provided that the writing assignment is such a big component of your final grade, I want to go ahead and give you access to some information about it right from the get-go. We're going to start you off on the right foot, get started immediately to start off the whole semester in your advantage so that you're not trying to work behind and catch up the rest of the semester, start feeling stressed and that sort of thing. So I'm going to just go ahead and take a minute, outline the steps that are critical to having a successful paper this semester, and give you kind of a primer for what I would expect. So this diagram kind of outlines the best approach for writing a more intensive research paper or systematic analysis paper. Typically, students want to start with the writing at the bottom, just have a quick idea and just start going at it and then fill in the blanks with stuff they can find online. But to have a well-developed and solid paper, you want to start a little slower. This is actually a system that I use. It's a system I know a lot of other researchers use. And it's a good way to kind of get a basic idea of what you actually want to write about before you jump right in and do the writing. It's hard to actually know what your thesis would be. You know, the middle part of this inverted pyramid, it's hard to know what that is if you haven't, one, come up with just the general topic area that you would like to look into, and two, done some research. Now, there are a lot of people who are out there who quickly just formulate a thesis and they write a wonderful paper. Usually those people are already aware of a lot of the research that's available. They've already kind of gone through a lot of the journals, the peer-reviewed research, some of the text, that sort of thing. And so since you're, I'm assuming, relatively new to psychology and law, I want you to come up with a topic area, a couple topic areas. First, really dive into the research and get a sense for what's available, what's already been done, what their findings have been to this point, and use that information to form a thesis statement. Once you have the thesis statement, that should lead everything else really easily, and you can come up with an outline fairly quickly, and then write the paper, write out a draft of the paper, and then hopefully refine it to just a beautiful work of art. The outline and the writing will go much more quickly. If you've already done all the research, feel passionate about the topic, it's a smart thesis statement, and it'll just, again, facilitate everything from that point forward. So for that first couple stages of the inverted pyramid, the topic and research. Really, when you go through the semester, you'll find this, that progress tasks 1 through 4, these are the tasks that we're going to have as things you turn in, writing assignments that you turn in. Those tasks 1 through 4 take, that's half of writing the paper, and that's before you actually even write the thesis statement. You get started on doing research, PsycInfo, PubMed, Psych articles. I reference Wikipedia. If you use Wikipedia, that's absolutely great. That being said, it is not the best source because it's not really peer-reviewed. There's some degree of review where there's somebody kind of making sure that there's not just a whole bunch of junk up there. But PsycInfo, PubMed, Psych articles, any of those databases that you might get from the mental health field through the library databases and the UNC libraries is really going to be your best bet. When you're looking for additional research, if you're having trouble finding information on a certain topic area, get articles that are really closely related and see what they've been citing. Look in their reference sections. And go ahead and see if you can't find some things that are closely tied to what it is you want to do, if not exactly. Along these lines, you'll see that word skim. I don't expect you to read every article cover to cover. Open up an article that looks like it would be appropriate or along the lines of what you want to do. Read the abstract. If it's relevant, jump to the results or the discussion section, get a sense for their findings and arguments. How does it or does it not fit with your topic area? And as you go through it, if it seems like it's a good fit and helps you develop your thesis statement or your understanding of how you should approach the paper, that's absolutely great. Go ahead and use it. One of the things you're looking for as you go through are gaps in the literature. Okay, so I find 5 articles about this, but not one of them actually mentions this other thing that's, I think, is really closely related. Sometimes in the discussion sections, they'll say, hey, I've done this research and this is something that's still missing out there. Great, then look and see if anybody's done that, and if it's something that intrigues you, wonderful, look into it a little bit more, see what that might be. Also, you can look for discrepancies in the literature, things that just, you see one article that says, I feel like this is the way, you see another article which contradicts and says, no, that's not, this is the way. Look for those discrepancies and you can find that tension, and that might spark an idea for you. Something that you really want to investigate further and just see what's already out there in the literature, and whether it be kind of looking at it from a new perspective or whatever. Another way you can look at similarities or relationships between things. So my best example of this is if you're, like when I actually did my dissertation, I was looking for the impact of presentation software, like PowerPoint and all that, on jury decision making. Well, I didn't see a whole lot of that in the psychology and law research at the time, but I saw a whole lot of it in decision-making research, which is a whole new set of journals different from psychology and law. And people in psychology and law, there are people doing jury decision-making, but it was just very separate field from decision-making as a whole for psychology. So that brings us up to the thesis statement. Your purpose as a thesis statement is to provide a unique perspective, a synthesis of sources, apply an overarching psychological theory to similar empirical sources, try to explain discrepancies, as I was talking about, combining similar psycholegal applications, policy change recommendations. The goal of the thesis statement is to provide a unique perspective. I'm going to just underline that. You're not just trying to give me a book report. I don't want you to simply repeat what's already been said. I want you to take it a step further. I want you to synthesize some original thought and make an argument for it. I want you to teach the reader something, and we talk about the reader. The reader, you always write with the reader or your audience in mind, and the reader in this example, or in this case, is the peers in your class. Someone with a basic knowledge of your topic area, because you're learning a little something in the class, but certainly you're not trying to teach me. I'd love to learn something, so if you do, that's absolutely great. And it doesn't have to be like this revolutionary idea that no one else has ever thought of, but I want it to be something that you are teaching us, you are bringing your own unique ideas to the table and providing a bit more depth and insight. So your thesis statement is not merely a statement of fact. So like interrogation tactics can lead to false confessions, which make them controversial. Okay, that is very true. You're not really offering me your unique perspective. You're not synthesizing any sources. You're not really kind of coming up with any sort of original thought on that. Instead, you could do a juvenile suggestibility and subsequent likelihood of false confessing is increased when interrogation tactics include the presentation of false evidence, reinforcements, and minimization. If you were to look through, you would find that there's some research that kind of supports some of that, but nothing that says that's a non-controversial statement. That there is something that you could probably form a strong argument in support of that statement. That being said, it's also possible you could find some chinks in that armor. So, you want to make sure that you're making a case for something versus just saying something that's already been accepted. The rule of 3 is just kind of a nice rule. It's not in concrete. When you make a point, it's nice to support it with about 3 main ideas. The example is there in the example of juvenile suggestibility statement. We have three different supporting ideas. This interrogation tactics include 1, presentation of false evidence, 2, reinforcements, and 3, minimization. I also actually expand that rule of 3 to include articles. If you have an idea in your paper, it's nice to have maybe 3 articles that give some sort of support for that idea, or if you're arguing the other side and showing some of the problems with the research, having 3 articles to support that. So I've said it, but I'm going to just underline, highlight, put an asterisk next to it. Be careful to stay away from just giving me a plot summary. This is not just a literature review. You need to have your own main ideas supported by other people's work. A good thesis statement will help prevent this, so that's why it's so important. That's why we put so much time in at the beginning to develop a good thesis statement. But if at the end of the day I read your paper and I feel like you just gave me a book report just telling me what 5 different articles said, you haven't done your job, and that's going to be a big red flag for me. So just stay away from just giving me a plot summary. All right, so let's just wrap up here talking about kind of our approximate timeline. The dates are already listed on the syllabus. It is possible, I suppose, we might move them around if things look like things are getting a little hectic for you with other assignments, but I think this is going to be pretty solid. You'll notice progress tasks 1 through 4 take 7 weeks, and progress tasks 5 through 8, and that's including the turning in the final paper, are 6 weeks. So for the first 3 weeks, the first week, you're going to do progress task 1. After you're done watching this video, you've got a week to come up with a couple different topic ideas. And then progress task 2, you're going to read some articles, summarize those articles, make sure that you kind of get into them to kind of help formulate what your thesis statement is. By weeks, progress tasks 3 and 4, that's 4 weeks. You're really going to form that thesis statement, hone in on what it is your thesis statement is, and then you're also going to create an outline. And in that outline, you can put different sources you plan to cite in different sections, and you're going to have, as you can see, a good chunk of time to kind of really get into that, get a lot of sources. After that, you're going to have 2 weeks to just write the introduction, which is going to be 2 to 3 paragraphs, and then 1 additional section of your paper. The next progress task is 2 weeks later, where you have to have a full draft of the paper. That's for peer editing. We're going to get it to your peers. They're going to give you really solid feedback. You're going to give a fellow peer solid feedback. And then once you get that feedback back from your peers, you're going to finalize your papers. You have 2 weeks to do that, and you'll be turning them in on May 5th, which is our last day of class. So this is our general timeline. Certainly you can come back and look at this again for reminders or cues, but we'll be talking about this as the semester progresses. And hopefully this just kind of gave you a introduction, a brief overview of how you'll want to approach the paper, and give you a good head start as the semester progresses.